It's almost comical, really, looking back at that old school picture of project management.
Yeah, totally. Everything seems so buttoned up.
Exactly. You had these super detailed blueprints, the
Mm,
statement of work, the SOW outlining exactly what gets delivered.
right. And the work breakdown structure, the WBS, chopping it all up.
And that earned value management thing, EVMS, for tracking everything perfectly against the plan.
It all sounds so
Mm.
orderly,
And complexity. Well, that was just like a maybe something tucked under risk management.
which is wild, isn't it?
It really is. Apparently, the very first project management certification exam didn't even list risk management as a core thing you needed to know.
Wow. That really puts it in perspective.
Fast forward to now, and it just feels like every single project, big work stuff, or even, planning a big family reunion, is constantly throwing curveballs.
Well, that shift, it really mirrors how the world itself has changed, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That old focus on rigid plans, it kind of assumed a predictability that, frankly, just isn't reality anymore.
Yeah.
Project complexity isn't some side issue now. It's often, like, baked right into the core of what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. And if you're listening, you're probably nodding along right now. Whether it's a massive work project with a million moving parts or even just a personal goal that keeps shifting.
Uh-huh.
We're all dealing with way more intricate situations.
Mm-hmm.
So for this deep dive, we've pulled together some really interesting insights.
Okay.
We're looking at work by Dr. Harold Kersner on how project complexity has just ballooned in this VUCA world.
Kirshner, yeah. Good stuff.
And then we're pairing that with Dr. Mark Reason's perspective, specifically on managing projects within that VUCA environment. He draws a lot from post-disaster scenarios, actually.
Oh, interesting. So, like, real high-stakes complexity.
Exactly. They come at it from slightly different angles, but honestly, together, they give you a really powerful way to understand it all.
Right. So by weaving them together, we can maybe get a better handle on why things feel so much more tangled these days.
And crucially, start thinking about strategies to navigate it all without just getting completely overwhelmed.
That's the goal.
So yeah, our mission today: dig into these sources, understand what's driving this complexity spike, and most importantly, pull out some practical ways to think about and manage it effectively.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's unpack this first bit. For decades, it sounds like project management was kind of humming along in a pretty stable, predictable world.
That's definitely the picture the sources paint. A time when traditional projects were the norm. Think really clear business cases explaining why you're doing it.
Right.
Meticulously detailed statements of work saying exactly what needs doing and super precise requirements.
And the big emphasis was just follow the rules, follow the standard methodology.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
There was this kind of one-size-fits-all approach. And success was often measured by how closely you stuck to that methodology.
Not necessarily by whether the project actually, achieved what it was supposed to.
Exactly. The process often trumped the actual outcome, especially when things got tricky, which, looking back through this VUCA lens, you could see was a major flaw. It just couldn't adapt.
Yeah, that rigidity is the killer in dynamic situations.
And there was this interesting power dynamic, too. Executives, apparently, were often hesitant to hand over the really strategic, or maybe the super risky, projects to project managers.
Really, who got them then?
Functional managers, usually. The thinking was, they had more control within their own departments, their own hierarchies.
Huh. Seems a bit backwards from today's view, where project managers often lead those big strategic pushes.
Well, yeah, but the idea then was senior leaders felt they had a better grip through those established departments. Maybe the PM handled the technical bits, but the big business risk calls stayed higher up.
I see. So what changed? When did that start to shift?
Well, that's the fascinating part. Executives started to wonder if that traditional setup was really working for those, let's say, less conventional, more strategic things. Problems started cropping up, like resource allocation functional managers would naturally prioritize tasks linked to their bonuses.
Ah, makes sense. Protect your own patch.
Right. And there was maybe a tendency to kind of downplay or hide the complexities bubbling into the surface in those big initiatives,
So covering things up a bit.
or just not fully grasping the interconnectedness, maybe. It started showing that those old hierarchies weren't really built for these messy, modern challenges. You needed someone looking across the whole thing.
Which sounds more like a project manager role.
Exactly. So around the turn of the century, you see this real shift. Project managers start getting handed these more complex strategic projects.
And suddenly the old playbook doesn't work anymore.
Pretty much immediately. That one-size-fits-all thing just fell apart. Kurzer's work really highlights this divergence. Traditional projects assumed, a fixed business case, clear scope,
Right, set in stone.
whereas these complex projects, they have evolving goals, fuzzy boundaries. It demands a totally different mindset, different tools.
He has that exhibit, right, contrasting the two types.
Yeah, Exhibit 2, I think it is. It lays it out clearly, compares them on things like how stable the business case is, how clear the scope, how predictable the risks, and yeah, the level of complexity.
That comparison must be pretty stark.
Oh, it is. You really see the move from knowns to unknowns, from static to constant flux. And that's exactly where things like agile methods started gaining traction.
Because you need that flexibility.
You absolutely do. And robust risk management suddenly became non-negotiable. Understanding complexity wasn't just nice to have anymore. It was becoming a core skill as PMs got more trust and autonomy.
Which brings us neatly to, well, the big framework for all this, VUCA.
Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. Yep.
Now, this term, it wasn't originally a project management thing, was it?
No, not at all. It actually came out of the U.S. military, late 1980s, apparently.
Oh, okay.
And it really took hold in military education in the early 2000s. It was their way of describing the really challenging, unpredictable decision-making environments they were operating in.
And these elements, they're all tangled up together, aren't they? Kurtzner has another exhibit showing that how they all influence each other.
That's right, Exhibit 3. It's crucial.
Yeah.
You can't really isolate volatility from uncertainty or complexity from ambiguity. A change in one area ripples through the others.
Makes it hard to find simple, linear solutions then.
Extremely. And the sources also make a good point that how VUCA is interpreted and used can really vary. Depends on the industry, even the specific company culture.
And it took a while for project management, like the official bodies, to really embrace this, right? You mentioned PMI in 2014.
Yeah, that's when their guide, Navigating Complexity, came out. And it started asking these really pointed questions.
Like what?
Things like, hey, can we actually define all the requirements up front? Or are our stakeholders' needs likely to stay the same all the way through?
If you're answering no to those.
Then yeah, you're almost certainly in a VUCA world. Those questions force you to really assess the inherent instability.
So Kurzner gives definitions for each element specifically for projects.
He does. For him, volatility is about those unfavorable changes, shifts in time, money, quality, specs, and figuring out their causes.
Okay.
Uncertainty is knowing issues might pop up, but you can't predict when or how likely. Like you suspect you'll need more budget, but you've no idea how much or when the crunch will hit.
Got it. And complexity.
That's the web, the interconnectedness of everything, especially under volatility and uncertainty. It's when there's so much information flying around, it actually makes decisions harder.
Like knowing time is money, but not the exact exchange rate for this specific tangled mess.
Exactly. You know there's a relationship, but it's too intricate to pin down precisely.
And ambiguity, that sounds the foggiest.
It kind of is. It's when you can't even fully describe what might happen, or you totally misread the risks, often because there's no precedent, no history to learn from. It's the classic unknown unknowns.
Oof. Like not even realizing why your budget or schedules are going off the rails.
Precisely. You don't understand the root causes.
So how on earth do you manage ambiguity if you don't even know what you don't know?
Yeah, that's tough. It often means you have to shift gears, maybe run small experiments, build prototypes, just to try and uncover those hidden factors. Learn by doing, iteratively.
Kurzner adds a fifth element too, doesn't he? Crises.
He does, yeah. Which is interesting. He's talking about those really high-impact, sudden events, like, say, product tampering. Things with severe fallout that demand super rapid decisions.
Adds another layer of intensity, another source of complexity.
Definitely. And his Exhibit 4 shows visually how all these VUCA bits feed into overall project complexity. And then Exhibit 5 talks about the skills needed, basically. Leaders have to become change managers, develop nonlinear thinking. Adaptability is key.
So Dr. Reason then brings this into a really stark, real-world context with his post-disaster work. Hurricane Irma and Anguilla, you mentioned.
Yeah, it's a powerful case study. Reason reminds us the military coined VUCA back in the 90s for the extreme conditions in the Middle East, something totally new and unpredictable.
And he sees a direct line from that to today's business world.
Absolutely. He points to the rapid changes in laws, social norms, tech, the economy. It's a similar kind of constant churn and unpredictability.
So he uses the same VUCA definitions, more or less.
Broadly, yes, but maybe with a slightly different flavor because of that disaster recovery lens. For him, volatility is that really rapid destabilizing change, sudden storms, market crashes, Brexit examples.
Yeah, things that pull the rug out.
Exactly. Uncertainty is that deep unpredictability where major shifts are just unforeseeable, ramping up the risk. Like, how will people behave in a disaster zone? How will a market evolve? It's that butterfly effect of globalization, too.
Makes sense.
Complexity, for a reason, is those really tangled systems, logistics in a disaster area, or just the sheer number of technologies and regulations businesses juggle now.
Right.
And he adds a really important caution here. Don't get too hung up on technology as the magic bullet. Keep problem-solving simple where you can, but use tech smartly.
Good point. Easy to overcomplicate with tech sometimes. And ambiguity for him.
He links it strongly to doubt, misinterpretation, information overload, and specifically calls out unreliable sources, the whole fake news issue. It erodes trust.
That feels very current.
It does. So Reason really sees VUCA as this contextual aberration. It demands a different way of thinking, being much more open to change.
And he flutes this idea of innovation project management, IPM.
Yeah. As maybe the future of management in this kind of world, how we need to innovate not just what we do, but how we manage doing it.
Okay, so we have this challenging environment. How do we actually cope? What are the practical steps? Kerzner and Reason both offer some guidings, right?
They do. Kerzner has some quite concrete suggestions. For volatility, he says, monitor the environment constantly. Plan for worst-case scenarios, build in some slack or buffer.
Makes sense. Be prepared.
For uncertainty, keep digging for information. Constantly try to validate or disprove your assumptions and constraints. Don't just accept them.
Actively challenge them.
Exactly. For complexity, really understand the interdependencies and, crucially, get highly qualified people on the job.
Right people, right skills.
And for ambiguity, be willing to experiment. Try things, see what happens, learn the cause and effect in that specific situation.
That point about assumptions seems really key in VUCA. Kerzner emphasizes that, doesn't he?
He really does. You just can't treat assumptions in the business case or SOW as gospel anymore. They're far more likely to be unproven or just change rapidly. You have to track them, test them constantly.
And he provides a tool for that, a SWOT for assumptions.
Yeah. Exhibit 6 uses a SWOT analysis framework, but applies it specifically to stress testing your assumptions. It's a really practical approach.
That's useful. And capturing lessons learned about managing complexity itself.
Critically important, Kerzner argues. Build that knowledge base. Also, understand the drivers of complexity in your company. Exhibit 7 lists typical ones: cost, schedule, tech, but they might differ.
Okay, so identify your specific triggers.
And then don't just say cost is complex. Recognize levels of complexity. Exhibit 8 gives an example for cost, like level 1 might be minor variance, level 5 is total budget unpredictability. It adds nuance.
Ah, so it's not just black and white, complex or not complex. There are shades.
Precisely. It helps you focus your effort.
Now, Reason offers a different kind of framework, doesn't he? His 4-step VUCA dimension framework.
Yes, it's more of a process model for managing within VUCA. Step 1 is purpose.
Okay, purpose. What does that entail?
Really getting crystal clear on why you're entering this VUCA situation. Define the scope, the objectives, even if you don't know how you'll get there yet.
So clarity on the what and why, even if the how is fuzzy.
Exactly. Envision the end goal, align it with the organization's values, set the right tone, build trust. It's foundational.
Makes sense. What's step 2?
Resourcing. And this is heavily about the people, getting the right people together as a cohesive team.
Teamwork makes the dream work, even in VUCA.
Especially in VCA. But it's also about empowered decision-making, shared responsibility, and huge adaptability, mixing and matching skills as needed.
So flexibility in the team structure itself.
Yes, and building team values around the mission, using tech wisely again, that caution and fostering a learning environment where best practices get shared quickly.
He also mentions emotional intelligence here.
He does. EI self-awareness, social skills, coping mechanisms, using emotional cues is vital at the organizational, task, and personal levels when you're under VUCA pressure.
Okay, so purpose, resourcing, step 3.
Achievement. This is about execution. How do you actually get things done?
The doing part.
Right. He stresses the value of simulations, practice runs, and really rapid knowledge management. Learn something, apply it now, don't wait for a 6-month review cycle.
Immediate feedback loops.
Exactly. And the leader's role is crucial here, constantly reinforcing the mission. He calls it the drumbeat. keeping everyone focused. Plus, being ready to adapt constantly, doing regular reviews focused on well-being, not just tasks.
And succession planning.
Yes, avoid single points of failure, crucial in unstable environments.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And the final step, withdrawal, seems like an odd one.
It might sound odd, but reason argues it's critical. You need a managed, measured exit strategy.
Not just dropping tools and leaving.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
The withdrawal should be steady, proportionate, and ideally leave the environment, whether it's a disaster zone or a market, in a better state than you found it.
And timing is key.
Timing based on achieving the goals you set out in the purpose step. Plus, setting up governance for sustainability after you leave, maintaining ethics during handover, and smartly redeploying your resources once the new owners are ready. His figure 2 outlines this whole withdrawal phase.
So it's about responsible disengagement, not just finishing the task.
Precisely. Closing the loop properly.
Okay, so pulling it all together, the big message seems to be this VUCA world, this complexity, it's not going away.
Looks like it's the new normal, yeah. Requires continuous learning, constant adaptation.
But it's not hopeless. We can manage complexity with the right approaches, the right tools, and maybe most importantly, the right mindset.
Absolutely. Reason really hammers home that point about preparedness, too. Disasters, disruptions, they'll keep happening. So we need adaptable governance, a mix of short and long-term thinking, flexible talent, resilient leaders.
And he talks about VUCA innovation. What drives that?
He sees it driven by things like focusing on health, safety, well-being, managing efficiency smartly, integrating digital and physical worlds, and really pushing for sustainable solutions.
So using the VUCA pressure to drive positive change.
Exactly. And he ends with this really neat little formula, the VUCA solution.
Oh yeah, what's that?
Turn volatility into versatility, reduce uncertainty through understanding, remove complexity with creativity, and eliminate ambiguity through adaptability.
VUCA becomes VUCA, but with positive actions. Versatility, understanding, creativity, adaptability.
You got it. It's a clever way to frame the response. It's not just theory. It's an actionable way to think about tackling these challenges head on.
So just to quickly wrap up the key takeaways, we've seen this major shift in project management away from rigid plans towards needing to handle constant change. VUCA gives us a language, a framework to understand why things are so complex now, whether it's business or disaster recovery.
Right.
And we've got practical strategies from both Kerzner and Reason, things like validating assumptions rigorously, understanding complexity drivers, building adaptable teams, focusing on purpose, managing knowledge rapidly, and even planning for a responsible withdrawal.
It really boils down to shifting from trying to rigidly control everything to being much more agile and responsive, navigating the chaos dynamically.
Which leads us perfectly to a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Thinking about those 4 elements, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, and the frameworks we just discussed, what's maybe one specific area at a project you're working on, or even something personal you're tackling, where getting a clearer understanding of one of those VUCA elements might make you more resilient, maybe lead to a better outcome?
Or maybe think about Reason's VUCA innovation. Is there one traditional way of doing things in your field that could really benefit from being more versatile, or based on deeper understanding, or more creative, or just plain more adaptable?
Yeah, just something to mull over. It might give you a fresh angle on whatever challenge you're facing next.